Let's hear what David has to say first. But Peg, I think you helped facilitate getting this marker to the archives. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. David.
Well, I'm gonna raise an issue, but I don't know what the solution is. 98.9% of the people, if not 99.9% of the people who are gonna look at it, gonna have no idea what the E if not was. And I don't know, we don't have enough room to explain, and so I don't know whether it's worth putting in at least the date, 1598 or not. Otherwise, I'm fine with everything. That's just my only comment. More of a comment than anything.
So David's was that thinking that, again, since we write these plaques, assuming that people bring no knowledge to that people will not know what the Edict of Nantes was and what the revocation of it would do. The only thing I can say is, again, it's not a solution, is most people do have phones, and if they are curious, you know. And pronounce Google in French, please. Usual.
I think it's excellent.
So if there are no other comments or corrections for side one, Dale?
Oh, I'm sorry, side two.
Okay, and I was gonna say, let's go to side two. Good segue.
13, side two. This fourth church dates to or from 1845.
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, sir, there's a question mark there.
Two's got two less letters, thereby making it more useful.
But I do think if it's grammatically correct, from would fit in. I mean, I think it's an either or. I just don't know.
Back to would be correct, but
Right.
you don't have a.
Could we just leave off the word to?
I think the 4th century dates 1845. It could be a subject like, or an object. The church is dating 1845. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of other examples. When you say something dates to the year 1845 or dates from the year 1845, I think both are correct. And again, I'm not sure. And I think Edward Brickell White is spelled correctly. We capitalize Gothic Revival, but if there are no corrections, no considerations, we can entertain a motion.
May I make a suggestion, Harlan? Peg Eastman?
Sure.
I'm looking at this. I wasn't planning to say a word. I had my piece before. But what if you said something to the effect, the 1845 church was designed by architect Edward Brickell White, is one of the earliest and finest examples, blah, 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 blah. You'd cut out a few words and then it would be more compact. I mean,
So if you can say exactly what you're suggesting, starting on line 12.
well,
So you're saying this church, comma, dating this 1845 church
yeah,
designed by architect Edward Brickell White is one of the earliest and finest examples of Gothic Revival design in Charleston.
yeah. I mean,
Pardon?
oh no, don't leave out fourth. Excuse me.
It's a full church.
I mean, so would there be enough room to say this church, this 1845 church, fourth on the site, designed by Edward Brickell White, is one of the earliest and finest examples of Gothic Revival design in Charleston? I see David shaking his head no.
Well, you got two declaratory sentences, very concise. You just created.
A long tribute to Henry James. All right.
May I make?
Well, and if you do speak, we do ask that you turn on the microphone.
The sentence might read, this fourth church, comma, 1845, designed by architect Edward Rickle White, is one of the earliest and finest examples of Gothic revival design in Charleston.
I mean, I think that's pretty much what I just said
Yeah.
to David, but David's objection is that it's taking two very simple declarative sentences and stringing them into one long thing with combining thoughts. But again, I don't have a dog in this fight. Peg, and if you turn your microphone on.
The problem is that the church has written on its steps that it's the third church. And a lot of people wanted to make sure that the word fourth was in here somewhere. It's the only word that I think is key. Thank you.
That's good. That's good information to have. Thanks. So, but y'all have the power to make a motion. So we have one motion that it be passed as written. Is there a second? We have a second by both Dale and Mickey. Is there any discussion? Yes, ma'am. Sorry. If you'll identify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Councilwoman Parker. So has the Huguenot Church approved this? Are you the representative from the church?
I helped write a book with several people in the church on the
Okay.
Huguenot Church, and they made me the quote authority. In other words, whatever you all do here is going to be good with them.
Okay. Thank you.
And forgive me for not recognizing you. So any further discussion? Shall we call for the vote? Anyone in favor, say aye or raise their hand. Anyone abstaining or no? Then the motion carries. Thank you for that. And now we're on to the second order of business. Excuse me while I flip all my pages. I'll just go to my copy where I didn't photocopy so much. And that is, and thank you, Philip, for having it behind us. And it's the plaque for Clement Harold Richardson Sr., Community Champion and Leader. And just to, for those of y'all that weren't here, we had kind of an abbreviated meeting last time because I had to be somewhere else. And we started discussing this and making some changes and making some recommendations, but we did not come to a vote on it. The only thing that I will say, since I have the mic, is, and I will ask if St. Andrews should be apostrophe S when it says St. Andrews Precinct number 3. I got a nod from Donna Jacobs. And then I think Wendell Gilliard is spelled incorrectly. I think it's Wendell instead of ALL. I can't hear you.
Judge Victor Rawl, I think, is also misspelled. They have an S on it, but he's not an S, is he, Robert? Robert,
So is it Victor Rawl?
Rawl.
Rawl and
Rawl.
not,
Isn't Victor Rawl, there's no S on that, is it? W-L,
no S.
I'm sorry.
So it's Clemens Harold Richardson Sr., Community Champion and Leader. And I also have a grammatical question that Dale or David might be able to answer. In the last sentence on the second full paragraph, he continued to work for, I guess it should be the betterment of his community, even after his health waned. If y'all are following me, does it need a comma there? And he had difficulties attending community and political functions.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not part of even after his death wanes, and so it's not a compound sentence with putting the comma in front of the and. It's not part of that long dependent clause.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Chairman. How did you spell Gilliard?
So, sorry, it's Wendell, Wendell. And I do believe Gilliard is spelled correctly.
Thank you.
And
In addition, I think for purposes of the style, since the middle names of the preceding politicians include a middle initial, I think Wendell is Wendell G. Gilliard and State Senator Herbert Fielding is Herbert U. Fielding.
Well, I know Herbert is U Fielding, but I'm not sure if Robert Ford, do you know if Robert Ford has a middle initial? or-
Robert does not have a middle name to my knowledge. I checked it, Googled it.
Right. I checked the spelling of Wendell Gilliard and for his just biography, I did not see a middle initial just online. I mean,
Well, there is one. I checked it online this afternoon and it's Wendell G.
all
Gilliard.
right. And do you know that he uses it all the time?
I'm just talking about, I don't know that he uses it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the text.
Right. And if there is someone from the public who wants to come, please come up to the microphone and address it. But anyway, those are just the thoughts that I had. I was just going to try to maybe get the spelling mistakes out of the way.
Did
Or
nobody say
drop
Rawls
words.
was misspelled?
You know, it's Joseph P. Riley,
Right,
et cetera.
You said something about Rawls was misspelled earlier or no?
Rawls, yeah. So Rawls, it's Victor Rawl, Judge A period Victor Rawl, WARRAWL, no S.
Thank you.
And we all have phones that we can check. But other than that, David?
Some grammatical, in the first paragraph, let's see, he served as a consummate civic-minded champion, working as an activist for improvements in his community. After rallying his neighbors to agree to, it has to the annexation into, I think you would just preferably say after rallying his neighbors to agree to annexation into.
So dropping
as
the
opposed to
V.
dropping the E.
Okay.
In paragraph 2, the same is true with the first sentence. Mr. Richardson served as Charleston County Democratic Party Executive Committee representative for St. Andrews Precinct 3, as opposed to the
V.
St. Andrews Precinct 3, since there's only one. And then the next sentence, this position enabled him to organize voter registration for his neighbors, comma, as well as others elsewhere, comma, who were not registered to vote.
Okay, thank you. And since there seem to be a number of things, maybe we will revert to our normal order and maybe just go through it paragraph by paragraph. So in the first paragraph, David has suggested that 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth line from the bottom, that the word "the" be removed from annexation. And if we want, shall I read it aloud for sense, just to make sure that we can catch things? Clement Harold Richardson Sr., March 11, 1925, August 21, 2003, was a devoted husband, father, Christian, 33rd degree Mason, and dedicated leader in the Ashleyville community of Charleston, South Carolina, sorry. He was an officer and member of the nearby Emmanuel AME Church located at 1057 Fifth Ave, and was the founder and president of the West Ashley Civic Association, now called the Maryville/Asheville Neighborhood Association, from 1954 to 2000. He served as a consummate civic-minded champion, working as an activist for improvements in his community. After rallying his neighbors to agree to annexation into the city of Charleston in 1993 and 1994, he successfully lobbied for the installation of streetlights, access to the city water system, street signage and paving, among other accomplishments. He was also instrumental in bringing organized football and baseball programs to local children at Deming Playground. And sorry, I did not read all the punctuation. Peg.
Is there any reason why we couldn't spell out avenue?
Since we don't seem to be limited to, the state signage by characters, I can't see it's why we could not. So shall we suggest that?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts, suggestions, corrections on paragraph 1? If that is not, if that is the case, shall we move on to paragraph 2? Yeah. And if you would come up and introduce yourself, Ms. Higgins.
Marsha Higgins. At the end of paragraph 1, it says at Deming Playground. Can you add in Ashleyville? Because people reading it don't know where Deming Playground is.
Right. I'm only, this is a rhetorical question. If we're talking about local children, does that localize it to Ashleyville? Right before that, it says baseball programs to local children at Deming Playground. I see your point that maybe think, so the thought is to add in Ashleyville at the end of playground.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on paragraph 1 before we move to paragraph 2? Okay, paragraph 2, and I'll read it maybe as corrected, and this time I will put in the punctuation. Mr. Richardson served as Charleston County Democratic Party Executive Committee Representative for St. Andrews, 'S, precinct number 3. This position enabled him to organize voter registration for his neighbors, comma, as well as others elsewhere, comma, who were not registered to vote. He made it possible for the citizens of Ashleyville and surrounding neighborhoods to gather at Emmanuel AME Church in Ashleyville, where they could meet candidates to make informed voting decisions. Many politicians, including, but not limited to, Charleston Mayor Joseph P. Riley, Jr., Judge A. Victor Rawl, R-A-W-L, Congressman James, U.S. Congressman James E. Clyburn, State Representative Wendell, W-E-N-D-E-L-L, Gilliard, and State Senators Herbert U. Fielding.
I indicated that there was.
With G.
Yeah.
With Wendell G, Gilliard, and State Senators Herbert U. Fielding and Robert Ford, sought his political counsel. Mr. Richardson was committed to engaging citizens in their government and creating solutions for all, period. He continued to work for the betterment of his community even after his health waned, and he had difficulties attending community and political functions, period. And if you turn on your microphone, there's a,
How's that?
yeah, green light.
I mean, if they really want this, I don't have any objection to it, but you say many politicians, including but not limited to, I mean, it sounds like a legal document. I mean, I would just take out but not limited to, and then at the end, his health waned, period. I mean, it's just, too verbose. He had difficulties attending, I mean, I'm just making that suggestion. I don't feel that strongly about it.
Right. The only thing I can comment on is we did discuss last time, Robert, on limited to, we saw his, let's see, including but not limited to. We did have a discussion with members of the public about that, and the consensus was that, that it did show that it wanted to leave it. I remember us discussing that and coming to that conclusion.
I'm not one to argue with verbosity. It's very possible.
You could be the spokesperson.
I mean, for one, lawyers charged by the word.
Mr. Chairman, looks like we have a speaker, Ms. Jacobs over there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see you, Donna. If you want to identify yourself.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Because we're discussing this over here on the 1, 2, 3, 4th sentence. When it said it's made possible for the citizens of Ashleyville and surrounding neighborhoods. I'm wondering, because he was the president of the Maryville-Ashleyville Neighborhood Association, and I'm sure he included the citizens of Maryville, that should be included in that sentence and not just separated or isolated.
So can you suggest exactly how the wording would go? He made it possible for citizens of
Maryville/Ashleyville and surrounding neighborhoods. Now, Mrs. Higgins might have a different opinion than me, but I don't think he was exclusive to Ashleyville.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Clark. Excuse me,
much-
Ms. Higgins, sorry.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much. And his daughter could not be here tonight because of a family situation. However, when the neighborhood association was first started, actually, it was only the Ashleyville community who participated in this neighborhood association. So I think it's very appropriate to say Ashleyville and surrounding neighborhoods, because that's what it was. It was only the Ashleyville community that was a part of this neighborhood association. And it included other surrounding neighbors. That includes the present Maryville community and all other surrounding neighbors also. But when it first started, the organization was only in the Ashleyville community. And we can document that. And I did check with his daughter before coming, and she reviewed this with me, and we reviewed the things that you already have in here that you reviewed with her at the last meeting to change. And so those are the things that she requested to be changed, and except for the grammatical issues and other things, that to please not change the other information because it is accurate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ms. Hamilton's behind you.
Diane Hamilton. I also beg to differ with this being just the Ashleyville. I didn't bring it with me tonight. I didn't think I would need it, but I just found some documentation where Mr. Clement Richardson worked as a team with the people in Asheville and Maryville as a team. And I found a letter that was sent on behalf of trying to get things done for Deming Playground. And it was signed by Mr. Clemens as the president of the West Ashley Civic Organization and Johnny Middleton as secretary of that group. And Johnny Middleton lived on the Maryville side. So these men, they basically worked together for the whole community. We didn't just separate into Asheville, Maryville. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'd like to add, matter of fact, just coincidentally, I just spoke with the Arthur Haynes, who was active in the recreation issues of our community, with some that we are presently working on today. And he mentioned Mr. Clement Richardson. And yes, he did involve other communities and other neighbors. And they did work as a team for the Deming Playground. They had to advocate for it. However, when he was working, the organization was first started, there was only Ashleyville residents. And we can look at the history and tell the people who were working with him were only Ashleyville people. And this is appropriate to have and surrounding neighbors, because he did reach out not only to the surrounding neighbors, but other people in the Charleston area, because he encouraged people to register to vote. He encouraged people to vote, and he made it possible for us to meet the candidates who were running, and he was actively involved with the political officials. So it is appropriate as it is, because yes, he did reach out, but Ashleyville was the key community at that time, and he only worked with, only Ashleyville was the neighborhood association. So that's why she stated as Ashleyville. His daughter who wrote up this was at the time, she acted as secretary at times and have all of his records of when she served as secretary, and have his records when he served as president. So, it is her request that it stays just like it is.
Right. So I see that we're in a situation where we've got one group says one thing and one group says another. What I would suggest, just in the nature of compromise, by actually looking at the language itself, if it said that in a certain date, let's see, let me get to the right sentence. If he made it possible for, so he was Democratic executive representative, this position, and I'm assuming he held that position for quite a while, for a number of years. Right. So I think if we parse this sentence grammatically, if we were saying in 1952 he founded this, then I think it would be grammatically correct to say it was only Ashleyville. But since over the sentence seems to convey that was over a period of time of his service that he allowed this to happen. So I think it's correct to say in 1952 it might have been Ashleyville, but the sentence is basically saying the work of his work understood over the X number of years allowed not just Ashleyville, but Maryville, Ashleyville, and surrounding neighborhoods to gather at Emmanuel Church. So again, just to repeat, trying to be clear, if we were limiting this sentence only to when it was founded, it seems from what I hear that it might be technically correct to say merely Ashleyville. But since this sentence is describing the entire length of the time that this was happening, at some point, Maryville was folded into the Ashleyville community. So I would possibly suggest that, since it does seem to convey an era of time instead of a specific moment. Well, basically saying that if we had stated that so basically it would be what Donna Jacobs had suggested, that it would just be, he made it possible for the citizens of Maryville/Ashleyville and surrounding neighborhoods to gather at Emmanuel AME Church in Ashleyville. So Ashleyville is certainly focused on in that the meetings are in Ashleyville. But again, this is over a period of time. Okay, well, we use, okay,
Ashleyville, comma, Maryville, and surrounding neighbors.
okay, so,
Now we are the Maryville/Ashleyville community.
okay. So in the first paragraph, is it correct to put slash there? We have Maryville, Asheville. I'm just doing that for the sake of consistency. In the first paragraph, we do say, now called, yes, the Maryville/Ashleyville neighborhood. So you're suggesting that, so that he made it possible for the citizens of, and should it be Maryville first or
No,
Ashleyville
it could be
first?
Ashleyville first, comma.
Ashleyville, Comaville, Maryville,
Maryville.
and surrounding neighborhoods.
Yes, sir. That would be acceptable.
Okay, and do we need a comma between Maryville and? Okay. No, Ashleyville is first. Okay, so of the three, okay. I will defer to the attorneys on that one. Yep. So is there any more discussion on paragraph 2, Dale?
Neighborhood, so would the term resident be more appropriate than, I mean, citizen be removed and replaced with the word residence? Not
And
to
so
put
this is
anybody-
starting in 52, yep.
Sorry?
Right, so I'm just clarifying that it's starting in 52, and I would defer to the people representing the community if they think residents would be a more accurate legal description of of the population rather than citizens? You know, did the people of this area feel disenfranchised? Did they not feel citizens? Did they just reside in the neighborhood?
Mr. Chair and Committee, I think residents would be appropriate. Residents would be appropriate because we're talking about the history. We're talking about Clement Richardson as the president of the neighborhood association. We're not talking about the history of Maryville.
Right.
So it would be appropriate to say residents.
Okay. And I'm assuming these changes might be being made behind my head. I am not a teacher. I don't have eyes in my head, so I'm just going to mark this up. So we're changing citizens to residents. Any other thoughts about Dale?
It has to do with format more than anything. And in the first line, which is a part of a lengthy sentence, we have his length of his life, his duration. And I propose that we take those things, those dates that are now in commas and simply move them up under his name in the title.
So I'm sorry, is this in the first paragraph or the second paragraph?
First paragraph, first line. In parentheses are the dates of his birth and death.
Right. And I'm going to look back just to see if we did that in uniformity on the other plaques. That would be the, and I think we have some of the copies here. I do not see that we did that on the other plaques, because sometimes we had a birth date in the first line and then just only had a death date in the last line. So it doesn't seem that we were uniformly putting the people's birth and death dates under their names. I think that's correct. So we would have to go back and rechange everything. But I see your point.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, on the question of citizens and residents, I wonder whether we are not overlooking the fact that they're meeting for a civic purpose, not for just because they live there. Residents may reside in the neighborhood but not be citizens. Citizens are meeting for a civic purpose, and to change that would cloud the purpose for which they were gathering.
I'm trying to read the sentence.
It says citizens now. Someone was saying that it should be changed to might be.
No, I'm just.
Yeah.
So, I mean, residents can do civic stuff as well too. And again, I would defer to people in the neighborhood.
Well, I'm saying that the citizens
Right.
are meeting for a civic purpose to meet with their representatives or potential representatives. And because of that, anyone could be a resident, someone from abroad, someone from another city could be residing there for a while. But here we have citizens meeting for a civic purpose, and not to call them citizens clouds the reason for which they were gathering. This is citizens in this case is more specific than residents.
Right. I understand. And Dale, if I'm correct, I think your point is that people at this time may not have felt that they were citizens. And in the 50s, they might have been disenfranchised.
This was the 40s, 50s, the rights of citizens is still a very, very important aspect of African-American history. The assertion of those rights, people at that time in particular, right to vote, those kinds of things are still up for grabs. We need to make it clear that they were citizens meeting with their potential representatives so that they could be informed about how and whom and for whom to vote. And it's a more specific term, citizen, than resident.
Right. So again, I will, Dale.
Well, my only point was that the community was a neighborhood by this time, and that the fact that they had earlier been a true municipality is lost. At this point, they're
not citizens of the city.
St. Andrews Parish in Charleston County. They don't live in the town of Marysville, as I understand the chronology.
Right. Right. They're citizens of the county, but
Yes.
they are not citizens of a municipality at this
Exactly.
point.
Right. So.
Right.
I have no problem with keeping the original word in citizen. It's a good point. It is a political subject in that sentence. It's-
Right. Right. So is there any thoughts from the people of the public to revert citizens to citizens? Okay,
You know, we agree with that and we understand
okay,
the point that, that he made. So it would be acceptable to
Okay.
leave citizens there for us.
okay. Thank you, Ms. Higgins.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we'll revert back to, I'm sure it's magically been done behind my head. So anything else in paragraph 2? I feel like we're drafting the Constitution or something like that.
do that.
So shall we go on to paragraph 3? Am I rushing things? So he and his wife, comma, and again, I'm going to defer to the people here to make sure that the names are spelled correctly. That Marguerite Julie Brown Richardson, comma, had 7 children, colon, Estelle R. Ladson, comma, Margaret R. Excuse me if I pronounce it right, Reetes, comma, Althea Richardson Latham, Clement H. Richardson, comma, Jr., period, comma, Geraldine H. Harine, comma, William H. Richardson, comma, and Olivia R. Horlback, period. Any thoughts on paragraph 3? Seizing power. I will go on to the next paragraph. Mr. Richardson often opened his correspondence with a quote from poet and philosopher, comma, Omar Khayyam, colon, quote, "The moving finger writes, comma, and having written moves on, nor all the piety, nor all thy wit, comma, shall lure it back to cancel half a line, comma, nor all your tears wash out a word of it, period," end quote. I will say that the last time that there was a thought that we thought that the second line in the quote would not start with nor, but I did check the quote before that meeting and it did start with nor.
This is not what all of it. But I mean, it's the modern version, not the
Right.
original. But
But
it's the one he-
that's apparently the one he quoted.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Any thoughts on that particular paragraph? And is the comma correct between wit and shall on the last line of that paragraph? I just don't know.
Well, that would be whatever the quote.
Had you pulled it up, Robert?
Quote,
Yeah,
there's several versions.
right. I mean,
We want the comma version.
I'm just trying to make sure that the comma, as you say, everything can hang on a comma. Dale? Oh, you turned your light off. Okay. Okay, fat fingers here are going to put the quote in to make sure.
The reason I'm questioning whether the quote should read and having writ moves on is to preserve the rhyme. Not all thy wit. So let's see what happens with search. What do you got?
The moving finger, capital M, capital L, writes, semicolon, and having writ, W-R-I-T, moves, capital M, on, colon, nor all thy piety, capital P, nor wit, wit, shall lure it back to cancel half the line, nor all thy tears, capital T, wash out a word of it. But again, I mean, I think that this was translated in English in the 19th century, and he probably got it from a more modern source.
My quote,
People don't say thy and thee. And
what I pulled up, Robert,
Mm.
aligns exactly with yours. It just does not have the capitalization. So in that respect, let's see, the moving finger writes, the moving finger writes, comma, or semicolon, and comma, having writ,
Writ.
W-R-I-T,
Right.
comma. Let's go back,
Harlan, I
moved
got a
on,
question.
colon.
Does anyone have an extant copy of what he actually wrote? Because you're saying this is what he wrote.
Right, I
So has
understand.
anybody got a copy of how he wrote it and what he said, whether it was the first version, the seventh version, or whatever? The reality is, if you want to say he quoted it, you need to figure out what he actually did write, how he wrote, not what Omar Khayyam did.
And
And then,
Marsh Higgins,
Yes,
to the chair and the committee members, it is correct. His daughter double checked it after it was questioned the last time. Mr. Richardson used this quote often.
and these are the words that he used.
Yes, and these are the words that he
Okay.
used.
and
So-
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Parker had her hand up
Right,
a minute ago.
yes,
That's okay.
Right.
That's what I
Yes.
was just, I
Right.
think I heard you say, I think
Right.
this is how the family
right,
Yeah.
quoted, this is how he quoted, this is correct.
right.
I
I mean,
don't think changes should be made.
and do we know, I mean, I'm only questioning now the comma between, nor all thy wit, comma. I mean, yeah, yeah. Right, yeah.
Right.
Could say, we'll defer to the experts here, to the family. So any other discussion on that paragraph? We've got a final one sentence paragraph left. Mr. Richardson passed away on August 21st, 2003, in the home and community that he so dearly loved, period. David,
Grammatical,
pardon? Grammatical?
Grammatical. That he loved so dearly. The love, it's an object. He loved what or how or what?
So you're basically saying, so he passed
Saying
away
that
and,
he-
right, in the home and community that he loved so dearly instead of so dearly loved.
Unless they've changed that part of English, as they've changed a lot. Like, it would be.
Any other grammarians or thoughts? So, I mean, I think we've gone through every paragraph, and I'm confident that Philip has captured everything, again, going on behind my head, as long as no one's putting fingers up behind my head or anything. Are we ready for a motion?
That we accept this document as written,
As amended?
amended.
Is there, okay, is there any discussion? Hearing none, yes, Ms. Parker.
Is the family and community pleased? Yes. Yes, okay, thank you.
Any more discussion then? So I'll call for the vote. Everyone in favor, please say aye and or raise their hands. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? I think we did it. Yay. Applause is completely appropriate, if people feel that way. So with nothing else on the agenda, anything from the public? We can say the meeting is adjourned. And thank you all for your attendance and for your attention.